They are all fake, the little girl said to the Mafia boss, pointing at one of the men. The room doesn't react at first. It locks. Kang Dae-ho's pen pauses above the last page, ink trembling at the tip. The contracts are spread in a precise fan across the black marble table, heavy paper, gold seals, signatures aligned to the millimeter. Across from him, two men sit with practiced stillness, eyes forward, hands folded, the posture of people who expect obedience. The voice didn't come from them. It comes from the side of the room. A little girl stands near the wall, shoes scuffed, coat still half-zipped. Her arm is extended, finger pointed straight at the documents. Her face is pale, jaw tight, as if she's already braced for punishment. They are all fake, she says again. A chair scrapes. Someone inhales sharply and stops halfway through. From the floor-to-ceiling windows, Fifth Avenue glows with traffic and winter light, indifferent to what just cracked open 30 floors above it. Kang lifts his eyes. He doesn't turn his head all at once. He finishes the motion he started, sets the pen down carefully, parallel to the paper, then looks at the child. His expression doesn't change. It never does when something threatens him. That's how people learn to fear him. Whose child is this? He asks. A woman steps forward before anyone else can answer. Her movement is small but urgent, like she's trying to shield without touching. I'm sorry, she says. She shouldn't have spoken. The girl doesn't look at her. She keeps pointing. I heard them, she says. Her voice wobbles now, but she doesn't drop it. In the hallway. They said once you sign, the accounts disappear. They said it would already be too late. One of the men at the table lets out a quiet laugh, sharp with nerves. This is inappropriate. Kang raises a finger. The laugh dies instantly. The silence presses down, thick enough to feel against the skin. The hum of the building's ventilation grows louder. Somewhere behind Kang, a security guard shifts his weight, then stills. Kang studies the girl's face. Not with anger. With attention. He notices the way her hand shakes, the way she stands her ground anyway. He notices the woman behind her, how her shoulders are rigid, how her eyes flick from the men at the table to Kang and back again, calculating danger. Your name, Kang says, still looking at the child. Mina. And you, he says, finally turning to the woman. Yara Okoye. The name lands oddly in the room. It doesn't belong to this table. Kang looks back at the contracts. At the men who want him to sign. At the pen waiting exactly where he left it. Check them, he says. One word. No explanation. A phone is already in someone's hand. Another man stands too quickly and forces himself to slow down. The seconds stretch. The girl lowers her arm at last, fingers curling into her sleeve, as if the weight of what she's done is starting to register. Yara doesn't move closer. She doesn't pull Mina away. She just stands there, breathing shallowly, like she knows this moment is already past saving. Kang watches the men make the call. He watches Mina. And as the line connects, the room tightens, not with relief, but with the sense that whatever comes next has already been set in motion. The line stays open. Kang Dae-ho doesn't move while the voice on the other end speaks. He stands with one hand resting on the back of his chair, fingers spread, knuckles pale against the leather. The men across the table watch his face the way sailors watch a horizon, searching for a sign they can't afford to miss. Mina's shoes scuff softly against the carpet. The sound is too loud. Yara Okoye shifts her weight without stepping closer, as if distance might still protect them. Her eyes don't leave Kang. They flick once to the phone, then back, measuring time in breaths. Kang listens. The voice stops. He lowers the phone and sets it face down on the table. For a moment, no one speaks. The city hums outside the glass, horns rising and falling far below, the smell of hot metal and winter air seeping through the sealed seams of the building. All forged, Kang says. His voice is even. Every page. Every seal. A man on the right exhales too fast. Another grips the edge of the table, then releases it as if burned. Someone laughs again, short, thin, wrong, and stops when Kang turns his head. The relief arrives first. It's brief and treacherous. The deal is dead. The money won't vanish. The blade has missed. Then the dread moves in to fill the space it leaves behind. Because of forgery, this clean doesn't fail alone. Kang's gaze sweeps the room, slow and precise. He doesn't need names yet. He doesn't need explanations. The truth is already arranged for him in the way men avoid eye contact, in the way a knee bounces under the table and then goes still when he notices Kang watching. Stand, Kang says. Chairs scrape back. The sound echoes. Security shifts at the perimeter, hands hovering near jackets, bodies angling in, sealing exits without blocking them. The air tightens, sharp with cologne and paper and the faint metallic tang of fear. Mina steps half a pace closer to Yara. Yara doesn't look down, but her arm moves, subtle and automatic, forming a barrier without touching. Kang notices. He gestures once. The contracts are gathered and slid away, the table cleared as if the deal had never existed. Phones buzz. Orders move outward, fast and quiet, threading through Manhattan toward places that won't be safe much longer. The men are escorted out one by one. None of them look at Mina as they pass. One of them looks at Yara. It's quick. Curious. Remembering. That look costs her more than the interruption did. When the doors close, the room feels larger. Emptier. More exposed. Kang turns back to the two of them. You stopped a theft meant to weaken my entire operation, he says, not raising his voice. That makes you visible. Yara's jaw tightens. She nods once. She already knows what visibility means. Mina looks up at Kang, searching his face for something she can name. She doesn't find it. She swallows. Kang steps closer, not to them, but to the windows. He looks down at Fifth Avenue, at the slow, indifferent river of headlights. Somewhere in that flow, word is already spreading. Somewhere, someone is recalculating. He turns back. Why were you here? He asks. It's a simple question. It lands heavy. Yara opens her mouth, then closes it. Her eyes flick to the door, then to Mina, then back to Kang. The silence stretches. Not empty. Loaded. The pressure doesn't ease. It sharpens. Yara doesn't answer. The question hangs between her and Kang Dae-ho, heavy as the glass walls pressing the city back. Fifth Avenue keeps moving below them, but inside the room time has narrowed to breath and posture and what isn't being said. Kang waits. He is good at this. He doesn't fill silence. He lets it do the work for him. Mina shifts again, closer now, her shoulder brushing Yara's coat. Yara's hand finally comes down, resting lightly on the girl's back. Not a pull. A claim. We clean offices upstairs, Yara says at last. The words are measured, practiced. Tonight ran late. Kang studies her face. Not the sentence. The face. The way her eyes don't ask for belief. The way she doesn't rush to add more. Upstairs, he repeats. Yara nods once. The answer doesn't settle anything. It sharpens it. Kang turns away from them and walks back to the table. The contracts are gone, but the indentation they left on the marble is still faintly visible, like a bruise under skin. He runs his fingers across the surface, then stops. Name, he says, without turning. Yara Okoye. He doesn't ask for identification. He doesn't ask where she's from. He doesn't ask how long she's been in Manhattan. He simply takes the name and weighs it, the way he does with numbers that don't line up. Behind him, the room is too quiet. Even security has gone still, as if movement might be misread as intent. Kang straightens and lifts his phone again. This time, he doesn't step away. Run it, he says. Full. The word lands hard. Yara's shoulders tighten. She doesn't protest. She doesn't ask why. Her breathing changes, shorter, shallower, as if she's learned what happens after that word is spoken. Kang listens as instructions move down the line, fast and precise. Names. Databases. Old records pulled from places that prefer to stay buried. The machinery of his world engaging, not out of gratitude, but reflex. He ends the call and sets the phone down. Mina looks up at him. Are we in trouble? The question is small. It cuts clean. Kang crouches slightly, bringing himself closer to her eye level without fully kneeling. His suit creases at the knee. He smells faintly of ink and winter air. Not yet, he says. It isn't reassurance. It's accuracy. He stands again and gestures toward the doors. You'll wait. Yara nods. Here? For now. The doors open. Security doesn't touch them, but the message is clear in the way bodies shift to form a corridor. As Yara guides Mina toward the seating area near the windows, Kang's gaze follows them, tracking details he didn't notice before, the worn edge of Yara's shoes, the way Mina keeps her chin up even as her eyes dart. The city outside feels closer now, its lights reflecting off the glass, layering their reflections over the room. Yara catches her own image briefly and looks away. Minutes pass. Phones vibrate and are silenced. Names appear on screens. Old timestamps resurface. The pressure doesn't explode, it condenses. Kang remains standing, unmoving, as information begins to stack behind his eyes. Not conclusions. Signals. An employment gap that's too clean. Records sealed where there should be residue. A name that appears once, then vanishes. Yara feels it without seeing it. She straightens, spine rigid, as if bracing for a blow she's learned to anticipate. Kang finally turns back toward her. His expression hasn't changed. But the room has. Yara Okoye, he says again, slower this time. The way he says it makes the name heavier. Outside, a siren wails and fades. Inside, something that was buried has begun to surface, and whatever it is, it has already cost Yara the one thing she was trying to protect. Anonymity. The name doesn't leave the air after Kang says it. Yara Okoye stands where she was told to wait, back straight, chin lifted, as if posture alone might hold the past in place. Mina sits beside her, legs swinging once, then going still when she senses the room tighten again. The lights of Fifth Avenue smear across the glass behind them, layering their reflections over the city until it's hard to tell where inside ends. Kang doesn't look at Yara right away. He looks at his phone. The screen glows softly in his palm, illuminating his fingers, the faint scar along his knuckle. Information scrolls, pauses, scrolls again. The rhythm is wrong. Too much white space. Too many clean edges where there should be mess. He exhales through his nose. Something smells faintly of toner and ozone, the way offices do late at night when machines refuse to sleep. It carries him somewhere else without warning, another building, another country, polished floors and quiet corridors where voices learn to lower themselves automatically. Soul. The word doesn't need to be spoken to land. Kang's jaw tightens. He lifts his eyes at last, not to Yara's face, but to her hands. They're clasped together now, fingers interlaced so tightly the knuckles have gone pale. The skin at her wrist bears a faint line where a watch once rubbed every day and then stopped. His phone vibrates again. This time he steps away, just far enough that the glass wall frames him against the city. He listens. His shoulders shift once, subtly, as if adjusting under a weight he didn't expect. Say that again, he murmurs. The voice on the other end continues. Names. Dates. A location outside Seoul, once part of his father's estate. A staff roster from years ago, flagged and then sealed. An incident report stamped resolved without investigation. Kang closes his eyes briefly. When he opens them, the room feels smaller. He walks back toward Yara, stopping a careful distance away. Not looming. Not retreating. Mina looks up at him, sensing the change even if she doesn't understand it. You worked in a house, Kang says. It isn't a question. Yara's breath catches. Just once. She nods. In Seoul, he adds. Another nod. Slower. Silence stretches between them. It's not empty. It's crowded with things that don't have words yet. Kang's phone lights again. A document opens, old, scanned, imperfect. The image shows a signature he recognizes instantly. His father's. Heavy ink, decisive stroke. Authority pressed into paper. Below it, accusations line up neatly. Misconduct. Impropriety. A list of names meant to overwhelm, to confuse, to make defense impossible. Yara doesn't look at the screen. She doesn't need to. They said I was dismissed, she says quietly. That was the word they used. Kang swallows. Another page loads. Medical notation, redacted so aggressively it's almost violent. Dates blacked out. A single word left visible by mistake, floating alone on the page like a bruise that didn't heal properly. Pregnant. The sound of traffic below seems to rush closer, louder, as if Manhattan itself is leaning in. Mina shifts, sensing something wrong, something heavy. She reaches for Yara's hand. Yara squeezes back without looking down. Kang lowers the phone. The past doesn't crash into the room. It seeps. Slow. Cold. Unavoidable. Records erased too cleanly. Accusations forged too thoroughly. A life redirected with a signature and a threat that never made it onto paper. Kang feels the edges of something dangerous taking shape, not yet guilt, not yet certainty, but the unmistakable pressure of truth pushing up from below. He looks at Yara again. This time, he sees her. And the question that forms in his mind doesn't loosen its grip. Who went to this much trouble to make sure she disappeared, and why? Kang doesn't look away from Yara. The question he asked in his head still hangs there, unanswered, pressing on the room with the weight of something that refuses to stay buried. The glass behind them reflects the city and their silhouettes layered together, past and present forced into the same frame. Yara's shoulders rise and fall once. Then again. She draws a breath that sounds practiced, like she has learned exactly how much air to take when truth is dangerous. You don't remember, she says. It isn't accusation. It isn't bitterness. It's a statement shaped by years of silence. Kang's jaw tightens. His fingers curl slowly at his side. The faint smell of toner and ozone still lingers, sharp and metallic, but something else creeps in beneath it now, an echo of alcohol, sweat, old wood floors polished until they reflected chandeliers. Seoul doesn't stay quiet anymore. I remember parties, Kang says, his voice low. I remember being young. I remember drinking. He stops there. Yara nods once, almost imperceptibly. Her eyes drop, not in submission, but in concentration, as if she's choosing each word carefully so it doesn't splinter. You came back late, she says. There was music still playing. Everyone else was gone. Mina sits very still. Her feet no longer swing. She senses the shift even if she doesn't understand it. She watches her mother's face, tracking tension the way children learn to do when adults become unpredictable. I worked there, Yara continues. I cleaned. I stayed invisible. That was the rule. Kang's breath catches. Just once. You were drunk, she says. Not cruel. Not deliberate. But not listening. The words land without embellishment. No raised voice. No shaking hands. The restraint in her posture makes it worse. It makes it undeniable. Kang's mind flashes, not images, not clarity, but fragments. Laughter echoing down corridors. The weight of silk curtains. A woman's face blurred by memory and arrogance. His own certainty, at the time, that the world bent safely around him. I didn't know, he says, and the words sound smaller than he expects. I know, Yara replies. Silence settles. It is not gentle. When I realized I was pregnant, she says, I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to speak to you. Before I could try, your father found out. The name shifts the air. Kang straightens slightly, as if bracing against something physical. His father's presence fills the room without appearing, sharp, absolute, intolerant of inconvenience. He never told you, Yara continues. He never let me near you again. Her hands unclasp. One presses flat against her abdomen out of habit, a gesture frozen in time. The other trembles, then stills. He said I was a threat, she says. That if I spoke your name again, I wouldn't leave the house alive. Kang's stomach turns. They brought papers, Yara says. Accusations. Names I didn't recognize. Guards. Workers. Anyone they thought would make it believable. Her mouth tightens. They said it would be easier if everyone believed I was dirty. The word hangs there, raw. They forged everything, she says. Your father signed it himself. Kang's phone feels suddenly heavier in his pocket, as if the documents he saw earlier are burning through fabric and skin. I was dismissed in one morning, Yara continues. By nightfall, I was gone. Her gaze lifts at last, meeting Kang's fully. They told me if I ever tried to contact you, she says, they would kill me. Mina's fingers curl into Yara's sleeve. And the baby, Yara adds quietly. They were very clear about that. The room seems to tilt. Kang takes a step back without meaning to. The glass at his back is cool when it meets his shoulder blades. He presses one palm against it, grounding himself in the present while the past claws forward. I never chose to disappear, Yara says. I chose for her to live. The words strike harder than any accusation could. Kang looks at Mina. The girl's eyes are wide now, searching his face with a seriousness that doesn't belong to someone her age. There is something familiar there. In the set of her jaw. In the way she refuses to look away even when the air turns heavy. The thought arrives fully formed before he can stop it. It settles in his chest, undeniable, suffocating. His daughter. The city outside continues its indifferent motion. Cars move. Lights change. People cross streets unaware that a lifelong lie has just collapsed 30 floors above them. Kang lowers his hand from the glass. The choice in front of him is no longer theoretical. It is sharp. Immediate. Unavoidable. He can protect the legacy built on his father's lie. Or he can accept responsibility for the damage it caused, even if it costs him everything that legacy bought. He looks from Yara to Mina and back again. The room waits. So does the truth. The room doesn't release him. The thought still sits in Kang Dae-ho's chest, heavy and unmovable, as if naming it has altered the air itself. His daughter. The word doesn't pass his lips, but it presses outward, changing the way he looks at Yara, at Mina, at his own hands. He turns away from the glass. Come, he says. It isn't an invitation. It isn't an order meant to intimidate. It is simply the next thing that must happen. Security moves without touching them. Doors open. The space shifts, narrowing into a quieter corridor, then widening again into a room that faces the East River. The water below is dark, slow, reflecting the city in broken lines that never quite meet. Boats pass like distant thoughts. The smell here is different, cold air, faint salt, the metallic edge of winter. Kang stops near the window. Yara stands several steps behind him. Mina stays close to her side, fingers still hooked into fabric. No one speaks. The silence stretches long enough that it begins to feel intentional. I was young, Kang says finally. The words come out flat, measured. I drank too much. I don't remember everything. He lets that sit. I do remember this, he adds. I never gave permission for what happened after. Yara's shoulders stiffen. She doesn't move closer. She doesn't retreat. You don't get to decide where permission begins, she says quietly. The river moves below them, indifferent. Kang nods once. Acknowledgement, not surrender. My father acted without telling me, he says. He sealed records. He removed you. Yara's mouth tightens. He didn't remove me, she says. He erased me. The word lands harder than accusation. It reframes everything. Kang turns, finally facing her fully. The light from the window cuts across his face, sharp and unflattering, revealing lines that rarely show. He looks older here. Less armored. I didn't know, he says again. And you benefited anyway, Yara replies. The truth of it hums between them. Outside, a helicopter passes upriver, its low thrum vibrating faintly through the glass. Kang watches it disappear before speaking again. If this becomes public, he says, there will be consequences. Not only for me. Yara meets his gaze without flinching. There were consequences already. Mina shifts, glancing between them, sensing the pressure rising again. Kang notices and lowers his voice slightly, though the weight doesn't lift. I can't undo what happened, he says. I won't pretend I can. Yara exhales slowly, as if she's been holding her breath since Seoul. I didn't come here for apology, she says. I didn't come here for money. Her hand rests on Mina's shoulder now, steady, grounding. I came because I clean buildings, Yara continues. Because I live quietly. Because that's the only way we stayed alive. The river seems closer now, the dark water pressing up against the glass. I didn't choose to disappear, she says. I was told to vanish. Kang feels the structure of his world strain under the weight of that sentence. The sealed histories. The unasked questions. The protection he assumed existed because he never needed it himself. Phones vibrate behind him. He ignores them. If I reopen this, he says, it will not stay contained. Yara nods. It never was. The silence that follows is heavier than before. It carries not just memory, but momentum. Choices that can't be postponed without becoming decisions themselves. Mina looks up at Kang again, her eyes searching, curious, afraid, unguarded. He looks back. The distance between past and present has collapsed. What remains is a narrow path forward, edged with loss on both sides. And Kang knows, whatever he does next will cost him something he can't buy back. The silence stretches after Kang's last words, taut enough to snap. Yara doesn't answer him. She looks past him, through the glass, at the East River sliding by in dark, broken reflections. Mina mirrors her, gaze drifting outward as if the water might explain what the room refuses to. Kang feels the pressure gather behind his ribs. He turns slightly, angling his body so the window frames all three of them together. The city keeps moving. The world doesn't wait for clarity. Stay, he says to security, without looking. Then, quieter, to Yara, this won't take long. Yara nods once. Not agreement. Permission. A technician arrives without ceremony. No greeting. No eye contact. A sealed kit placed on the table near the window, sterile and impersonal, the faint smell of alcohol swabbing the air. Mina watches, curious but wary. Yara keeps her hand steady on Mina's shoulder, grounding them both. Kang rolls his sleeve back. The fabric whispers. He doesn't look at the needle when it pierces skin. He looks at Mina instead, at the set of her mouth, the way she holds herself when adults stop explaining. The sample is taken. Labeled. Removed. Time compresses again. Phones vibrate. Kang ignores the first. The second. On the third, he glances down. A single message from a number that doesn't ask for attention. They know. He pockets the phone without replying. The wait isn't long, but it feels endless. The city sounds filter in, the distant thud of bass from a passing car, the hiss of tires on wet pavement. Somewhere, a door closes. Somewhere else, a call is made that won't end cleanly. The technician returns. No words. A tablet held out, screen glowing. Kang takes it. He reads once. Then again, slower. His thumb tightens against the edge of the device. Yara watches his face, not the screen. She sees the moment it lands. The way his posture shifts, not collapsing, but recalibrating around a new center of gravity. Mina tilts her head. What is it? Kang lowers the tablet. He doesn't answer her yet. Yes, he says instead, to Yara. One word. Enough. Yara closes her eyes. The breath she releases sounds like something she's been holding since Seoul. The truth doesn't feel like victory. It feels like weight. It presses down, immediate and undeniable, rearranging the room around it. Kang's phone vibrates again. This time, he answers. Speak, he says. The voice on the other end is fast. Tight. Words tumble over each other, names, routes, whispers moving through Manhattan and beyond. The forged contracts didn't just fail, they exposed a fault line. People who expected profit now expect blood. People who thought Kang distracted now realize he's wounded. Kang listens, eyes on the river. Contain it, he says. For now. He ends the call and exhales slowly through his nose. This will not stay quiet, he says to no one in particular. Yara nods. It never does. The room feels smaller again. The glass no longer protects, it displays. Kang can already sense the calculations shifting in places he can't see. Old allies measuring risk. Old enemies smelling opportunity. He looks at Mina. The knowledge of who she is sharpens everything. Every threat now has a face. Every delay becomes a gamble with stakes he's never carried before. If this comes out, he says, careful, they will use it. Yara meets his gaze. They always do. Silence falls again. Intentional. Heavy. Kang turns back to the window, pressing his palm flat against the glass. It's cold. Real. He lets it steady him. His legacy sits behind him, built on sealed histories and unasked questions. His daughter stands a few feet away, alive because someone chose silence over justice. There is no move that keeps everything intact. Another message flashes across his phone. Short. Unambiguous. Pressure is closing in. Kang straightens. He turns back to Yara and Mina, the decision space narrowing around him like a vice. One choice preserves power. The other preserves truth. He knows he cannot have both. The decision doesn't announce itself. It settles into Kang Dae-ho's posture first, the way his shoulders square, the way his breathing evens out, the way the frantic calculations that have ruled his life for decades suddenly narrow to a single line forward. He turns away from the window. Phones are vibrating again now. Not just his. The room hums with it, security units checking in, intermediaries pushing for direction, old allies asking questions that aren't really questions. The exposed scam has cracked something open, and everyone can feel it. Kang raises a hand. The room stills. He doesn't raise his voice. He doesn't pace. He moves with the same precision he always has, only now the target is different. Bring me everything tied to my father's remaining accounts, he says. Foundations. Shell companies. Advisory boards. All of it. A pause. Just long enough for someone to understand what he's asking. Yes, comes the reply, careful and controlled. Kang nods once. The call ends. Yara watches him, expression unreadable. Mina leans slightly into her side, eyes flicking from Kang to the men who keep moving in and out of the room like pieces on a board that's about to be overturned. You don't have to do this, Yara says quietly. Kang meets her gaze. I do. Another phone call. Another order. Then another. Names that once carried weight are stripped of protection in a matter of minutes. Accounts frozen. Meetings cancelled. Doors closed without explanation. The machinery of the empire begins to turn inward, eating its own history. This is not a clean process. Someone protests. Someone else warns him about instability, about rivals waiting for weakness. Kang listens to none of it. He has crossed the point where preservation matters more than truth. Outside, the East River continues its slow, indifferent flow. Inside, the fractures spread. A screen lights up across the room, news feeds, internal alerts, sealed reports unlocked and forwarded to authorities who have been waiting for years. The rot that once lived safely behind walls of loyalty is dragged into the light, piece by piece. Kang feels each move like a physical cost. Partnerships that took decades to build collapse in seconds. Favors he can never call in again evaporate. The name his father cultivated as untouchable begins to tarnish. This is permanent. He turns away from the screens and looks at Mina. She watches him with a seriousness that still doesn't belong to someone her age, absorbing the weight of a world rearranging itself because she spoke one sentence out loud. He kneels this time. Fully. No calculation. You did the right thing, he says to her. Mina studies his face, searching for certainty. Are people mad at you? Yes, Kang says. She nods, as if that confirms something. They looked mad before. A ghost of something like a smile passes through him, gone as quickly as it arrives. He stands and turns to Yara. What happens next, he says, will follow you whether you want it to or not. Yara's jaw tightens. It already does. Kang nods. You'll have protection. Independence. A life that isn't built on silence. And you? She asks. He doesn't answer right away. Another call comes in. Kang doesn't take it. He lets it ring, then fall silent. My responsibility, he says finally, is to her. He gestures subtly toward Mina. Yara hears what he doesn't say. What about me? She asks. The question isn't desperate. It isn't hopeful. It is clean and direct, like everything else she's survived. Kang meets her eyes and holds them. I won't ask you to come back, he says. I won't pretend that acknowledgement repairs harm. Yara exhales slowly. Not relief. Not disappointment. Recognition. That's the first honest thing you've said to me, she replies. The room grows quieter as orders finish cascading outward. The empire doesn't collapse, but it changes shape, shedding pieces that can never be recovered. Somewhere across the city, men who once felt untouchable realize they are not. Kang steps back to the window, placing one hand against the glass. It is still cold. Still real. His phone vibrates one last time. A message appears, confirmation that the last of his father's sealed operations has been exposed, documents released, protections withdrawn. It's done. The cost settles into him, heavy and final. He has chosen responsibility. He has chosen truth. And in doing so, he has accepted that some things, power, control, even the woman standing behind him, will never be his to reclaim. He turns back to Yara and Mina. The future is no longer built on lies. What remains after that, he doesn't yet know. But the room knows something else. Nothing will ever be the same again. The room exhales, but it doesn't relax. The screens dim one by one. Phones stop vibrating as frequently, though none of them go silent for long. The immediate storm has passed, but the air is still charged, like metal after lightning. Kang Dae-ho remains by the window, his reflection layered over the East River, watching ripples carry the city's broken lights downstream. Yara stands where she has been standing, posture unchanged. The absence of shouting, of violence, of demands feels unfamiliar, almost dangerous in its own way. She keeps her hand on Mina's shoulder, steady, protective, as if the calm might crack without warning. Kang turns from the glass. It's done, he says. Not triumph. Not relief. Just fact. He gestures toward the table. Documents are already arranged there, clean, precise, unmistakably generous. Accounts established beyond his control. Security measures defined by distance, not ownership. A future that does not depend on silence or proximity. Yara looks at the papers but does not touch them. This isn't a contract, Kang says. It's separation. She studies him now, searching for conditions hidden between lines. There are none. That unsettles her more than threat ever did. And protection, she asks. It's permanent, Kang replies. Whether I'm involved or not. Mina leans forward, curious. Yara gently draws her back, keeping the boundary intact. You don't get to buy forgiveness, Yara says quietly. I know, Kang answers. A silence settles again. This one is different, less sharp, more deliberate. It allows space without pretending to heal anything. Mina breaks it. Will you still come? She asks. The question lands softly, but it carries weight. Kang lowers himself slightly, not kneeling this time, but bringing his voice closer to hers. If your mother agrees, he says. When she agrees. Mina considers this, serious as ever. You can't just show up, she says. A corner of Kang's mouth tightens, not into a smile, but into acknowledgement. No. Yara watches the exchange, chest tight. This is the line she will not allow to blur. Not now. Not ever. You don't get to decide when, she says to Kang. You wait. Kang nods. I will. Outside, the river continues its steady movement, indifferent to boundaries and bargains. Inside, the shape of things has changed. Security shifts discreetly, no longer circling but standing down. The room feels larger now, emptier. The power that once filled it has redistributed, thinning, settling elsewhere. Yara finally reaches for the documents. She flips through them carefully, eyes sharp, mind trained by years of survival. When she's done, she places them back on the table, untouched. We leave on our terms, she says. Kang inclines his head. That was always the intention. She meets his gaze, searching for arrogance, for entitlement, for the reflex to correct her. It isn't there. What remains is restraint. Mina looks between them, sensing the balance, the distance being set like a line drawn in wet cement. Can we go now? She asks. Yara squeezes her shoulder. Yes. They turn toward the doors. No escort touches them. The path opens without ceremony. As they reach the threshold, Yara pauses, not turning back, not fully leaving. You didn't erase us this time, she says. Kang doesn't answer. He lets the words stand. The doors close softly behind them. Kang remains by the window, alone now, watching the river swallow reflections and carry them away. He has a daughter he cannot claim, a truth he cannot undo, and a future that will never look the way it once did. The question isn't whether he will be present. It's what kind of father exists when presence comes without control. The quiet holds after the doors close. Kang Dae-ho remains where he is, one hand resting against the glass, feeling the faint vibration of the city through it. The East River moves below, steady and unbothered, carrying reflections away before they can settle. The room behind him no longer hums with urgency. Phones lie untouched. Screens have gone dark. What's left is space. He doesn't fill it. He straightens his jacket slowly, a habit ingrained from years of command, then lets his hands fall to his sides. Without Yara and Mina in the room, the air feels thinner. Less resistant. More honest. The contracts that once covered the table are gone. In their place is bare marble, cool and unmarked. The absence catches his eye, lingers there longer than it should. He remembers the weight of paper, the certainty of signatures, how easily power used to settle into his grip. It doesn't anymore. Kang turns and walks the length of the room, footsteps measured, unhurried. Outside, traffic along Fifth Avenue surges and stalls in familiar patterns. Horns sound. Lights change. The city doesn't acknowledge internal reckonings. He stops near the door Yara and Mina pass through. Not close enough to reach it. Close enough to feel where they were. For the first time in a long while, there is no move left to make. The truth sits where it belongs now, out in the open, unprotected by silence. It hasn't repaired anything. It hasn't softened the past or undone harm. It has only removed the lie that once held everything together. That costs more than he expected. Kang exhales slowly and turns back toward the window. The reflection looking back at him is unfamiliar, not weaker, but restrained. Defined by what it refuses to take. His phone vibrates once. He looks at it, then sets it face down without checking the screen. Whatever waits on the other end can wait. Far below, the river catches a brief flash of light, then smooths over it. The motion is continuous, indifferent, the same force that carried away reflections earlier and will do so again tomorrow. Kang watches until the light is gone. In the quiet, he thinks of Mina's voice, not loud, not demanding, just clear enough to stop a room. He thinks of Yara's stillness, the way she held her ground without ever raising it. The power he once understood was loud. Immediate. Absolute. This is different. This is living with what remains. Kang steps back from the glass. He doesn't look at the door again. He doesn't reach for anything to replace what he's lost. The city continues on. So does he. And somewhere beyond the reach of this room, a child goes to sleep knowing the truth was spoken and not taken back.